In reality, 72% of voters say that they believe President Biden is too old. That's according to CNN's most recent polling. Voters have been saying this for quite a long time. The reality is that the Democratic elites are mostly late to acknowledge these age and ability issues compared to the rest of the public. The elites have been forced to reckon with it after the debate just 11 days ago.
I welcome the fact that there's people in the mainstream media in the United States actually like doing their job, talking about this really important story that the president has like visibly, noticeably declined cognitively. And it's not just about being old. It's not just about having a bad night. Oh, I had a bad night. No, it wasn't a bad night. This is an incident that we've seen in a string of very similar incidents and very similar reporting. We talked a few weeks ago about that Wall Street Journal piece, which described the exact Biden that we saw during that debate. And now they're pretending like they just discovered the story that they've been generously ignoring and I think more accurately burying for the last couple of years.
Yeah, we've been talking about this, like you say, for years, even more so this election cycle. And we've been pointing out how ludicrous it was that they repeatedly sent out cabinet members, Democratic Party officials, members of Congress, whomever, to say almost identically, behind the scenes, Biden is sharp. He's attentive. He asks probing questions. He keeps me on my toes.
President Biden, who I've been around numerous times just in this last year, is sharp. He's focused. He's bright.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
We all recognize that pattern and saw that to be suspicious, if not outright, obviously, bullshit. And then you go into this debate, and it's like, oh, that was clearly what they were doing. It was absolutely just they were getting ahead of it. It was a PR effort. I mean, they're still kind of trying it. Karine Jean-Pierre, since that debate, has tried to say behind the scenes she's challenged all the time. She has to bring her A game.
He is as sharp as ever, as I have known him to be in my engagement and my experience with him. And I know when I walk into the Oval Office or see him on Air Force One, I have to be on top of my game. I do.
Meanwhile, we get report after report after report showing that they are all covering up for it. There's a couple examples I wanted to pull. First, from a new Wall Street Journal article that just published before we started recording. They're talking about a fundraiser that Biden had at the Four Seasons in New York last year. And he's asking them, look, first of all, people are recognizing that he is frail or weak. Attendees who talked to these reporters off the record. And then reportedly, at one point, Biden couldn't recall the word for veteran. Quote, the president asked the group to help him find the word, saying he wanted to refer to a person who had served in the Army or Navy. And sure, I find myself sometimes at a loss for a specific word. I don't know if veteran, one of the go-to buzzwords for any politician in the United States, would be one of them if I was in any of their positions. But again, I'm also not running for the president of the United States. And people will dismiss this, like most of the reporting in the story. Say, oh, yeah, this is bullshit. They're just splitting hairs, or we've all done that. They'll always make excuses. But again, this is a documented pattern on top of, on a grand display, a debate where he couldn't even finish a thought and then ended up endorsing beating Medicare.
Some of the stories that have leaked since that time are crazy. The stuff from meetings with donors where he doesn't recognize them, doesn't recall their names, and you basically have Jill Biden like talking for him essentially, or telling him what to say, and then him just repeating, what he says. I mean, it going back to what you were saying about Karine Jean-Pierre as well, and this whole narrative. Well, he's sharp and he's asking these probing questions and all this kind of stuff that they're saying. I don't think anyone's denying that he's sometimes with it and lucid and coherent. That's the whole thing, though, is that that's not all the time, is that he has these moments, especially later on in the evening when the sun's going down, where the things really change. you know, and that's like, it's the fucking president of the United States that we're talking about here. I mean, listen, we talk often, and we should talk about it, about the kind of like bizarre conspiratorial cult-like nature of like MAGA and the conservative movement. But like this is an ultimate example of the way that this exact mentality is permeated on both sides, totally bipartisan. And you're seeing really bizarre situations now where people, these loyal Democratic Party boosters and supporters like Rob Reiner are saying like, he can't do it. I read a backstage thing about him watching the debate as well and freaking the fuck out, you know, which is somewhat understandable. And then you have Rob Reiner like saying, I don't think he can run. I think he should step aside, whatever. And then you go to the replies, and it's all these people accusing Rob Reiner of being like a fucking, I don't even like, what is it? Part of some vast conspiracy to discredit the president, or with the Putin guy, or like working with CNN and the New York Times for some nefarious purpose to, you know, destroy Biden and falsely give people the impression that he's old as fuck, you know? It's so strange to see this play out, and just people's just total refusal to just accept what's right in front of them, what people have been saying for multiple years. There's been multiple stories of it. Now you can like really just see for yourself, and people just fully just refuse to believe it.
Yeah. Stephen King today.
Yeah. Oh no.
That was another one. Just like liberal darling, just the quintessential Trump bad, Democrats good guy for the past several years. Just acknowledged. He said, Joe Biden has been a fine president, but it's time for him, in the interests of the America he so clearly loves, to announce he will not run for re-election. And this is across the board. You're seeing it from people who like Biden, like the Democratic Party. They affiliate with the party proudly, recognizing this is a serious risk. And it, you know, you run the risk, sorry to be redundant, of handing the election to Trump, which we all agree would be bad. It's a much worse alternative than Biden. But you're gonna hand it to him if you run a guy who's already underwater in the polls, who the polling shows is losing most of the swing states, and even now is running the risk of losing non-swing states. There was already a distrust in his ability to fulfill his obligations as president because of his condition, and they're ignoring it. They're doubling down. They're same thing with his. It's a bunch of replies being like, "This is shameful. You should help fight Trump." He literally is, by saying it should be somebody different. And on the conspiracy thing, it's also fueled by his team and by his campaign. So that Stephanopoulos interview, one of the quotes that I think was most frustrating for a lot of people was when Stephanopoulos asked, hey, if you don't step aside and Trump wins, how would you feel in January? And Biden says, well, if I do the goodest job I can, I'll be proud, or whatever.
And if you stay in and Trump is elected and everything you're warning about comes to pass, how will you feel in January?
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the goodest job as I know I can do. That's what this is about.
Just acknowledging there is a risk that he could lose, despite insisting that he won't lose and he's the only person who can beat Trump, which is bullshit. You have a sample size of 2. TJ Ducklow, who's one of Biden's comms people, had a back and forth with Maureen Dowd at the New York Times over goodest, and basically made her rewrite the transcript after they strong-armed ABC into changing their transcript to say he didn't say goodest. You just heard the transcript. We watched it. When I heard it live, it's like, what the fuck did he just say? On top of the answer being a terrible answer, and they're just like, they're going back and forth to rewrite the transcript to cover this up.